Okay, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to Super Successful Presentations, 3 secrets for every speaker to use in any situation. It's going to have 1 hour today. I value your time and I'll get you up by 11 o'clock. And we're going to go over a lot of real fun and interesting things, some things that you probably aren't expecting, and some things that you've probably never heard before from other training courses, other public speaking classes, or even Toastmasters. So to start here, I'll give a couple of quick rules. Please keep your video on if possible. Your smiling faces keep me energized. Don't feel shy. If you have a question, there's probably a very good chance that someone else has the same question. So raise your hand either IRL, in real life, or virtually. And I'll do my best to monitor those things so that we can answer those questions as they come along. And first of all, does everybody know how to raise their hand virtually? Anybody need help with that? I don't see any head nods or any head shaking. Hi, Rihanna. Nice having you here today. And Miss Turner, nice to see you too. Okay. So at the end of today's training, I am going to invite you to come work with me, either in a group training course or one-on-one privately. And both programs are being heavily discounted today to thank you for coming. So is that okay with everybody? I don't want to offend anybody with a sleazy sales pitch. All righty. Okay. So let's get started. Also, one last thing to know about is I do like to demonstrate things as I discuss them in my training. So I'm going to be doing that today. The things that I talk about, you'll see me actually doing, and hopefully that will cement them in a little bit better. We have a rapport building exercise. We're going to do some audience participation. We're going to start off really slow and get the creative juices flowing. And we're going to be working up to a little bit more involvement as we go through the meeting. So I'd like to give you a very quick introduction on my background, because most of you know me, although a lot of you from the chamber may not even know too much about my background. But basically, this will only take just a couple of minutes. I was in the Navy for 10 years active duty. And upon getting out, I started my first business, photography by Aldo. And I did portrait and wedding photography for 6 years. I also got into the Naval Reserves, which I ended up spending 18 years in the Navy Reserves. So doing the 1 weekend a month, going out for a couple of weeks in different parts of the summer or different parts of the year. I went overseas to the Middle East for 6 months as a reservist. And that was a lot of fun. I worked in an Air Force command center. Also, while I was in the reserves, I got another job as a government contractor and doing war games down in Point Loma. So I wrote, crafted the training objectives and the scenarios for tactical war games. Did that for 18 years and did a lot of different things. I ran some war games, had a team of about 40 contractors and about 30 active duty. And that was a lot of fun. But I also learned a lot about teaching adults and did a lot of role playing. So I learned a little bit about acting. I would actually have to pretend I was different aviation, like pilots in different aircraft, or different people on civilian merchant ships calling out over the Marine radio to the Navy ship, doing all kinds of fun stuff like that. So that was a lot of training. And then about 8 years ago, I got the bug again to open up my own business. So I started Mind Masters South Bay, and that turned into Dave Ray Coaching and Consulting. And then 2 years ago, I wrote a book, Verbal Vigilante, and I used that as sort of a stepping stone to get into communications coaching. So I did 7 years of running weekly masterminds for small businesses. And then about a year ago, I pivoted into the communications. And I think I went through this sort of discovery about a year ago. I counted all of the meetings, training sessions, events, public hearings, ceremonies that I've attended as an adult in my entire professional life, it came up to 11,300. 11,300 meetings, training events that I've either attended as a participant or an audience member, or that I ran. And a lot of that was with the wargaming. We had probably 20 meetings a week. It was just crazy. So that brings us here to today. And so that gives me my my new mission in life, to eradicate death by PowerPoint from the face of the earth, because I've seen so much very interesting and horrible meetings. So the first thing we're going to do today, we're going to, for every speaker, and this is also for singers, but mostly, you know, as well for speakers. Before you do an event, you want to warm up your voice. You want to warm up your lips, your mouth, your teeth, your jaws. You want to make sure that you don't get tongue-tied or tongue-twisted over the words that you're using. So we're going to go through an actual voice warm-up exercise right now. So what I would like you to do is, if you feel comfortable, unmute yourself. And we're going to do a group exercise here where we're all doing our voice exercises together. So we'll be able to hear everybody. So the first one is going to be, and I'll demonstrate it real quickly. It's going to be ma, 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 ma. So we'll do that 8 times. So is everybody ready? I hope everybody's unmuted. Mostly everybody has. There we go. Okay, so ma, 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 ma. Excellent, excellent. Okay, the next one is going to be ta with T. Ta 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 ta.
Ta.
The next one is la with L. La 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 la. Now we'll go ga with a G. Ga 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 ga. Now my most favorite one, pa with a very explosive P. Pa 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 pa. Okay, excellent. Now this one's going to be a little messy. So I want you to take a big deep breath and then blow it out through your lips in like a kind of a feeling. So burble your lips. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to try that?
That's weird.
That is very weird. Okay, now we're going to do a low sound, the deeper tonations of your voice. You're going to go, ow, 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 ow. Now, excellent, excellent. Now I want you to do the high pitch noises, like the wee, wee, wee. Okay, excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was very, very good. I really appreciate that. And some good audience participation on that. So next, what I would like to do is, if you can open up the chat, and you can remute yourself if you'd like. You don't have to, but you can. And then open up the chat and put in the chat your name and the position that you hold in your business or your company. Are you a communications person? Are you the owner? Are you the vice president for employee affairs? Are you the main creativity coach for your company? Whatever you call yourself, you're where, and also where you're from, where you're dialing in from today, what city. If you're in San Diego, if you're coming from another state. I know we have a couple of people that reserved or made reservations that come from Canada. But where are you from, and the main position that you run in your company? And I'm going to take a peek at the chat here. Okay. So Mary Jo is the vice president. Joel is vice president and part owner. Good. Rich is a head philosopher, and Heather is the CEO. Michelle, oh, New Bedford, Massachusetts, Michelle. I'm from Quincy. Yes. Never actually made it to New Bedford. I know it sounds unbelievable, but from Quincy to New Bedford is probably less than an hour drive, and never made it down there in 18 years. Steve is the owner of his attorney of his law firm in Lakeside, and Rihanna is the founder of Drawing Board Marketing. Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, very good. So it's wonderful to see somebody from a different state. We always have a lot of people from San Diego in all of the meetings that I've been running, but somebody from New Bedford, Massachusetts. I can't believe that. That's great. Okay, so good. So what I would like you to do now is think for just a moment, and I'm not going to demand an immediate answer. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think this over. What would you like to get out of today's meeting? What is a question you have or a need that you have on the subject of speaking, presenting meetings, running training meetings, running board of directors meetings, briefing your CEO once a year, maybe about your particular department or your particular office location in the bigger organization. What is a question or a need that you've got that I'm going to probably address in my 3 topics? And if I don't, I will address it separately at the very end. But put that in the chat right now, if you can, and we'll go through that for just a second. Yes, PowerPoint, pitch decks, and educational pieces in particular. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and I can kind of fill in some other parts at the very end. Okay, how to maintain engagement. Absolutely, we are definitely going to talk about that. How to engage, keep them awake. Yes, definitely keeping them awake with the audience participation and calling on them. How to handle instant dry mouth. Okay, yes, actually, keeping a bottle of water right by the lectern or the podium and taking a sip, not feeling self-conscious about taking a sip of water. That's a normal human bodily function. You shouldn't feel worried about taking a sip of water during a speech at all. Engagement during presentations, maintaining focus. Yes, that basically entails making sure that there's good rapport between you and the audience, and even good rapport between the audience members. If we had a longer session today, we would have done something where I would get you guys talking to each other, but because it's a quick 1-hour thing, we don't have that time. Smoothly ask people to wait until the Q&A at the end. Yes, well, that goes in the basic ground rules that you set, so that you're not sounding like you're picking on one particular person. You know, the rules apply to everybody, and it's just mostly to ensure that the meeting goes smoothly and quickly. You have an agenda, you want to stay on time so that you can get people out on time so that they can get to the next event. But you know, asking for questions either at the end or during the time, I mean, either way is good. But basically, if you would like to leave your question and answers to the end, then just make that part of the way you're running the meeting. And prepare for a Zoom presentation. How do you prepare? It's like anything else. You dry run, you plan it out based on content and timing and what you want to add in terms of props and skits and videos and guest speakers, and you figure out how much time you've got, and then plan it out and do a dry run and make sure that you're within your guidance. Okay, so with that, we are running just a bit behind. So we're going to move on to the next topic. Okay, so you know that you are in the right place today if you need to go out and speak at networking events, but you feel a little overwhelmed, or maybe you don't know what to talk about or how to talk about it. You're in the right place if you feel anxious or afraid when you get asked to do something like a training session or do a presentation at work, or brief the department head, or brief the CEO if you feel anxious or afraid about that. And you're in the right place if you've tried to use speaking in the past, but it just didn't work out for some reason. You didn't get the result you wanted, or you did it, but you felt like you maybe didn't come across as professionally as you would like to have. So, if any of those things apply to you, you're definitely in the right place. Now, is everybody ready to learn something fun and helpful? I hope so. I see some head nods, heads shaking. Okay, so if you're ready to go, well, let's unmute one last time and say, I'm ready, Dave.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Ready.
I'm ready.
All right, very good.
Ready.
Very, very good. Okay, so we are moving on to the content. Here we go. So we're going to have three main topics today. The first one is going to be how to be engaging to the audience. That's going to be basically make it about the audience, make it about them. There's that radio station that everybody listens to worldwide. It's called WIIFM. I think it's 105 on the FM dial. It's what's in it for me. What's in it for me? So that's the audience's personality. They want to know what's in it for them. So when you have a presentation, make it about the audience. Let me give you a quick example. Think back. Well, let me see here. I'm going to mute Victoria there. Okay. Let me see here. Think back to a time when you were in an all-day seminar and they might have had 5 or 6 different speakers. And one of those speakers really didn't resonate with you. You were sitting there thinking, boy, I don't really like this topic. Doesn't really help me with what I'm doing. What did you do? Did you get out and go to the bathroom or go get a cup of coffee or go walk around usually they're at hotels. So maybe you went out and walked around the pool, stepped out and returned some phone calls, but you just felt like it was almost a waste of your time. Has anybody ever been in that kind of a situation before? Yeah, I see some head nods here. So basically, what if that is going to be you doing that to an audience? That would be probably the worst thing. So think of it, put yourself in the audience's shoes. They want to hear something that's of value and of interest to them, right? So let's go over what happens when that happens. What happens to the audience when you're not addressing them to their needs? Anybody have a thought on that? Yeah, Rich. Oh, just to unmute, Rich.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, because I'm a teacher, or I have been in my past career, the first thing that I'm always maintaining is eye contact with everybody in the audience. Now, Zoom, it's a little bit differently. But if you can see them all drifting away, the first thing that I like to do is, because I was a big fan of Socrates and the Socratean method of teaching, is I ask them a question to bring them back.
Exactly. Ask them some questions, get them back, pull them back in. But what happens if you lose them? What happens? Don't you think that the message falls flat? It's almost that you're talking, but nobody's really getting anything out of it. Maybe if you're not hitting them where they want, they will not see you as relevant. They won't see you as the expert that they need. Maybe they won't be paying attention. And maybe when you hit your call to action at the end, they'll completely miss it. They'll be scrolling through their phones, or they'll be, thinking about the grocery list on their way home from work today. So, on the other hand, maybe you're going to want a testimonial from them. They won't even give you a very good testimonial. They won't know what to say that they can come up with something nice because they really didn't get anything out of your presentation. So there's a lot of negative things that can happen if you don't meet the audience's needs. So the most important thing is to figure out what that need is. If you do that, then you're going to come across as confident, as relevant, as the expert that they want to work with. And, there's not going to be any negative thoughts in their mind. They're going to think of you only in positive ways. So how do you do that? Okay, here's the key. Communicate with the group early. If you're going to be doing something with a group, even a group that you know, like your networking group or a department in your office, if you're in a bigger company, communicate with maybe the leader, the department head, the president of the club. If you're going to go out and talk to the Rotary Club or the Optimists, have a discovery call beforehand. Maybe talk to the person that schedules the speakers, someone who knows the group dynamics, could be the president or the vice president of the club, and ask them, what do you want to hear about? What are some of the presentations that you've had in the past that you really liked? What don't you want to hear about? What do you want to avoid in your presentation? Because, they are not going to be able to leave in the middle of the presentation. Usually, if you're in a close-knit group like a Rotary Club or an Optimist Club or a department head meeting at work, if they leave in the middle, everyone's going to see it and everyone's going to know. So, they're going to have to sit there whether they like it or not. So make sure that you find out what is interesting to them. What do they need? And at some point, you might even say, well, that's not my bailiwick. That's not what I really excel in. Let me refer you to a different speaker that's going to make those needs for you better. I've actually done that before. And so in the sales lingo here, they say, you become interesting to them by being interested in their issues. Okay. So any quick questions on this? I don't see any hands. Okay, good. So number two.
I have a question, Dave.
Yes.
I mean, because I'm an accountant, and so I'm presenting financial information to people.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's stuff if they want to be a good business owner and manage, they need to understand. But it's the losing them when you've given them too much accounting talk. How do you bring them back in at that time? I like the question idea, but I don't know what else we can when they already don't understand, how do you get them back?
Okay, well, what I would say on that really is try from the beginning, from the front end, to not get to that point. Try to figure out what their level of expertise is. And maybe you need to give a little bit of a discussion at the beginning to bring them up to some basic, sort of a baseline level. But if it's at all possible, don't talk over their heads. Dumb it down if you have to. Dumb it down if you have to. Give them just the real, in a nutshell, what they need to see. There might be something where you give them a basic version to the whole group and make more advanced spreadsheets available separately to people who want them, but you don't include those in your presentation. You just give them like in the Navy, they call it the wave tops, the high level information that basically gives them what they need to know. We're down 15% in sales this year. We don't know why. That's going to be the next project, is to figure out why. That's all they need to know. You don't need to give them a graph that goes up and down and up and down. And you don't need to talk about 12 different pieces of the economy and why the economy is suffering. Just give them what they need to know and what the immediate action is going to be. And that usually gives you the best results. Does that make sense? Okay. And part two, how to be a little bit more confident. So with this, basically, it starts from before you even speak. Let me ask you this question. How many times have you hyped yourself up so much before an event, whether you were speaking at it or not? Maybe you were taking your daughter to her first father-daughter dance or mother-daughter dance or something, but you were putting so much pressure on yourself as far as, am I going to be on time? Am I going to look good? Am I going to say the right stuff? Are they going to like me? Am I going to fart when I walk through the front door? All this kind of stuff. And then when you get there, after about the first 30 seconds, everything is just fine. Everything's good. You look good. People are greeting you. You haven't farted yet. You build yourself up so much sometimes with a hype that is not necessary. So that's the biggest thing. I want you to think of the next time you have to run a meeting or do a presentation or do a small speech or make a toast at an anniversary dinner with your parents and 10 of the other family members, whatever it is. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, because they're in there to have a good time. They're in there to learn something. They're in there to whatever the particular event is. They want you to do well. They're on your side. They're in your corner, and they're rooting for you to do a good job. And so from that level, or from that maybe mindset of that perspective, you shouldn't be overwhelming yourself with all this fear and dread. The other thing is that generally, most people that are in a meeting, that are sitting in an audience, that are sitting in some sort of a speech, or like I say, board of directors meeting, you're getting a quarterly update on financials for your company. Most people aren't professional audience members. They just go through life, they go through meetings, they go to day-to-day work, and they kind of get what they get. They get horrible meetings, they get mediocre meetings, sometimes they get a good meeting every now and then, but their level, their bar that you have to overcome is pretty low. So if you just give them an okay meeting, you're par for the course, you're normal, you're average. If you give them a good meeting, they might actually notice it. And if you give them a great meeting, they will really love you. So first of all, the bar that you have to reach is not that high. So don't go putting so much pressure on yourself. And if you do a great meeting, they will love you. And again, they do want you to do a good meeting. They want to get something out of it. They want to have a quick, to the point, enjoyable meeting that has a goal, and you meet the goal, and then everybody leaves the meeting and you go off and go back to work. So, they want you to succeed. They want you to have a good time. They're in your corner. And so don't think of it as adversarial. Don't think of it as you're trying to beat them or win their approval or all that kind of stuff. Just go in there ready to present them with some good, solid, helpful information, have a nice meeting, have a nice training session, give them a nice speech, do a nice toast, and everybody will love you. So that, I think, hopefully if you go in with that attitude, you should feel a lot more confident and you should do a lot better job. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, I see a lot of head nods. Good. Okay, any questions on that aspect of speaking? How to feel more confident before you go in? Okay, now the third thing we're going to talk about is how to be and look more organized and more professional. The thing that I like to do on this is I kind of go back to all of my training in the Navy, in aviation, in flying airplanes. Everything that we did we called it a standard operating procedure, SOP. It was in a checklist. It was basically written in somebody's blood. Somebody either lost a thumb or died or, ended up getting very, very injured because they didn't do something right. So that procedure was, they figured out the right way to do it. They wrote it down. They put it in a manual. We used to have this thing called the NATOPS manual. It was that thick, 1.5 inches thick, and had a blue plastic cover on it. And they called it the big blue sleeping pill. You had to read that during flight school, and you had to keep it as a reference all throughout your active duty flying. And it was written in government-ese, and it would put you to sleep in 3 seconds, guaranteed. But because of that, everything that we did was standardized, and we knew what we had to do and how we had to do it, and we did it, and we had these little printed checklists that we used. So that's what I go when I do my training for my students. I say, put everything into a standard procedure and a checklist. Use worksheets, use templates, use fill in the blank forms. Make it easy so that you don't have to think about all this stuff. You just go to the checklist and just do what's on the checklist. And I've gotten a lot of really great presentations put together by using these checklists. What I like about it is you don't forget anything. You take all the sort of the grunt work, the heavy lifting, put it into a written format, a template or a checklist, and then that leaves your brain all that extra bandwidth to do the creative stuff. to make sure that you're going to have a fun story, or you're going to have some really, really good examples, or you're going to be able to explain things with just the right words that give all the full meaning that you need to get across. By doing that, that brings a lot more fullness into the content, makes it more relevant to the people. They get a better feel and they get better outcome of what they're listening to in your content, and they make it, they get a lot more out of it by being able to do all the fun stuff, the creative stuff, using just the right words and putting everything into the right context for the people who are actually in the audience. And to kind of go by that, there is a book that I read many, many years ago called The Checklist Manifesto. So I would highly recommend that. The Checklist Manifesto talked all about the use of checklists in the hospital industry and how a lot of people were getting sick and dying after operations. And by looking at all the procedures, culling together the best practices from all the different hospitals and all the different doctors and all the different types of surgical procedures, they came up with checklists of what happened when the patients survived, when the patients recovered quickly, and when they didn't get sick after the operation. And then they put that into sort of like the standard operating procedures for every team to do, both before the operation, during the operation, and after the operation, to make sure that the mortality rate was as low as possible post-surgery. So that kind of goes to hand in hand with the for the military, for the aviation, and also for a lot of the first responders, the police officers, the firefighters, the EMTs. They all have the same thing with very set standard operating procedures that are written down, and you have checklists that you have to follow step by step. So let's see. So for what to do, I would say start with just doing a checklist, putting together a checklist for yourself on what you have to put in the content of your presentation. Put down things like what types of props you're going to use, how are you going to dress, what types of stories are you going to tell. Are you going to have music? Are you going to have videos? Are you going to have guest speakers come in? Are you going to use a microphone? Are you going to have an audio system? Put all that down in writing in a checklist, and then make sure you use it for the presentation. And then afterwards, you go back and you make sure you kind of check each item. Okay, I did this well. That didn't go so well, so I need to change this next time. And basically fine tune your own procedures as you go. You can also work with somebody that has, like myself, that has the checklist already put together for you. But in your particular situation, the best way to start would be to just write everything down and practice, get some feedback from another, maybe a person or a friend or a family member or a colleague at the chamber or something. Get them to give you feedback on how it went, and then tweak it. Make some fine-tuning adjustments to it so that you get better and better. And then when you give it, ask for feedback after the event, which I'm going to ask for feedback from everybody here after maybe tomorrow or Friday. But basically, always get feedback every time you perform. And even if you're just doing a training meeting at work with the other coworkers, things like that, always ask for feedback and use their ideas to get better. Whether you have to maybe stay more on point, you might have rambled too much, or you didn't use the right terminology, you're confusing people in your discussion and your explanation, you didn't explain things fully, or maybe you used an example that wasn't pertinent to that particular group, or maybe you were too dry, you didn't dress things up with colors and images and graphics. That's a real good thing to do when you have a lot of financials. Make all the profits bigger and green on the font, make all the deficits red and smaller in font so they don't look as bad. And that's one way to dress something up that's starts off by being very, very dry. using videos and audio recordings to add some emphasis to certain points, and getting audience participation, making sure that you always ask for questions and for people to ask for you to re-explain something that wasn't explained properly the first time. Let's see. So any questions on that? Okay, so we got about 2 minutes right now that I'm going to throw in a little bit of a bonus. Here's something that a lot of people maybe talk about in some of the college courses I'm speaking, but I don't hear it talked about in just sort of like plain everyday life. When you are speaking, you want to try to use what I call the juicy words, the words that really explain the essence of what you're trying to get at. And here's a kind of a little bit of a side explanation of what that. Every word has a definition, but also every word has a connotation. Every word has kind of like an emotional feeling associated with it. So say, for example, you use the word competitor. Maybe you are a competitor in a race or a swim meet. Maybe you are a competitor business. You have 2 law firms in a small town. You're competing for the same clients. That has a certain connotation, a certain emotional feeling. How about you use, rather than the term competitor, you use adversary? Now that's a whole lot different. That's like, the United States against China. They want to see us destroyed. We want them to stay in the South China Sea. So, that has a different connotation. Now, what if you say enemy? So maybe now you're going to kill each other, or only one of you is going to walk out of the cage alive. So competitor, adversary, enemy, different connotations, but all essentially the same meaning, really. So use that concept when you're putting together the text of your speech, the text of your training, the words you're going to use when you put on whatever kind of a presentation it is. Like I said, I keep talking about briefing the company's CEO once a year, or briefing the board of directors, whatever it is, even if it's just a simple toast at an anniversary dinner. The words will give you, if you use the words properly, they will give you a much different and much better effect for what you're trying to get across. Does that make sense? See a couple of head nods. Okay, but I want to thank you so much for coming today. I do want to give you a send off, like I talked about in my other things. Basically, go out there. I want you to become the most exciting, influential, and impactful speaker that you can be. I give you a toast. We all raise our glasses to toast each other to powerful and impactful and fun presenting, training, and speaking. I see that you can all help me in my efforts to eradicate death by PowerPoint from the face of the earth. I can, at some other point in the future, also induct you as my verbal vigilantes so that you can go out there and protect average daily citizens from the perils of the English language. So I'm going to stick around. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I really appreciate it. And I can just open that up now for anybody. Okay, bye, Heather. Open it up now for anyone that has any questions on anything I've talked about today, or anything about how I run my classes.